それでは、定刻になりましたので、ただいまから、第4回エネルギー情勢懇談会を開催いたします。本日は朝早くからお集まりいただきましてありがとうございます。今日は白石委員と五ノ上委員は欠席でございます。で、世耕大臣は今日は10時ごろ、今定例の記者会見をやっておりますので、10時ごろ、こちらの方に来られて、ご挨拶をいただくことになっております。で、今回は海外で原子力や風力発電などゼロエミッション事業を展開しているエネルギー企業の経営戦略を中心にご議論をいただきます。今回も海外から有識者の方にご参加をいただいておりますので、ご意見をいただきながら進めさせていただきます。まず海外からの企業の方をご紹介をいたします。まず米国エクセロン社のクリス・グールド副社長、それからラルフ・ハンター副社長でございます。よろしくお願いいたします。それから次に、デンマーク・オーステッド社のマティアス・バウゼンバイ本部長、それから意中州市場開発部長でございます。両社ともゼロエミッション化に戦略的に取り組むエネルギー企業でございまして、エクセロン社は原子力、オーステッド社は風力を中心に事業展開をされてございます。それから、本日の会合を充実したものとするために、両社の方にはあらかじめ懇談会の委員の皆様のご意見をいただいた上で、質問事項を投げかけていただいております。今日もiPad を使っての資料でございますけれども、資料3のところをご覧ください。質問事項というのが1枚紙でございます。資料3でございます。質問事項を大きく4つ投げかけていただきました。投げかけさせていただきました。よろしいでしょうか。質問、資料3でございます。で、まず最初は、ゼロエミッション電源へのシフトへの契機、あるいは経営上の判断理由ということで、原子力や風力を中核的に事業展開するに至った経緯、背景、あるいは経営上の判断、こういったことをご質問として投げさせていただいております。2つ目は、そういったその風力や原子力に取り組む場合の課題の克服として、どういったことに取り組んでいるかということをご質問させていただいています。そして3つ目は、投資環境ということで、自由化など環境変化が進む中で、原子力や風力への投資を継続していくためには、どのような取り組みを行っているか、あるいは必要と考えていらっしゃるかということの質問でございます。4点目は、産業事業転換、あるいはその事業改革ということで、エネルギー事業の将来を睨んで、どのような事業改革が必要か、あるいはそういった中で、対中戦略などをどのように考えていらっしゃるかという質問をさせていただいてございます。それから、資料4をご覧ください。事務局の方から議論の参考とするために資料をお示してございます。資料4でございます。それで簡単にご説明させていただきますと、2ページ目、3ページ目、これは前回、前々回の有識者の方の発言のポイントをまとめさせていただいてございます。で5ページ目以降に少しデータを並べてございますが、まず5ページ目は世界のエネルギー市場の規模、大きなフレームワーク、大枠を示させていただいてございます。一次エネルギー供給、エネルギー転換、それから最終消費、それぞれ分野別にどのくらいの規模感があるかということを示してございます。 全体として見ると300兆から700兆ぐらいの間でそれぞれが分野別にどのくらいの規模であるかということでございますが、例えば位置エネルギー供給の中でいうと化石燃料の生産と非化石エネルギー、これは大体3対1の割合で非化石エネルギーの方は拡大しておりますけれども、依然として化石燃料の生産供給というのは多いということでございます。例えば本日お話をお聞きしますオーステッド社は、もともとは石油開発の企業でございましたが、現在は再エネ風力発電の方に大きく舵を切っているということでございます。真ん中にエネルギー転換部門の割合がございます。石油生成発電が大きくウエイトを占めていますが、その中の発電でエクセロンはこの発電の中で原子力事業を中心に事業展開をされているということでございます。一番右側、消費の割合を示してございます。6ページ目は、企業の主要企業の概要電源構成でございますが、これは本日お話を聞くオーステッド社、エクセロン社、それから次回にお話を聞く予定にしておりますエンジー、EDF、エネルといった会社の規模感をお示しています。オーステッド社は売上高 1.5 兆円、国外の比率が 75% 程度と非常に大きく占めてございます。発電事業の割合で申しますと、風力が 45% と非常に大きく伸ばしているという状況でございます。エクセロン社は、右から3つ目でございますけれども、売上高が 3.6 兆円、特に発電事業の中での原子力事業が 89% で非常に高いウエイトでございます。その他、次回お話を聞く予定でございますエンジー、EDF、エネルは大体10兆円規模の売上高を示して、これは一番右側に東京電力が示してありますけれども、この6兆円という規模よりもさらに大きく総合エネルギー企業として展開をしているということでございます。7ページ目は低炭素化のターゲットということで、2015年の CO2 の排出量を概算で示してございます。世界の中で申しますと、やはり OECD 諸国以外の新興国の CO2 の排出量が全体の3分の2を占めているということで、ここにどういうふうにアプローチをしていくかということがやはり大事な課題でございますし、分野別に申しますと、電力が非常に大きい、やはり割合としては最大でございますので、ここの CO2 排出削減をどういうふうに狙っていくかということも、やはり課題ということかと思います。それからその次は主要国の電力市場の変遷ということで、例えば9ページでございますけれども、これはドイツの電力の市場の推移と CO2 排出量の推移を示しています。1990年と2010年、2015年ととってございますけれども、最初の1990年と2010年は20年間隔、その後はこの5年、最近の傾向を示していますが、電力需要は顕著に伸びています。その中で発電供給の方で申しますと、再エネが近年急速に拡大をしているということが分かると思います。一方で原子力については近年特に低下をしていると。一方で火力につきましてはほぼ横ばいか微減という状況でございます。従いまして CO2 排出量は当初1990年から2010年はガスへの転換で下がりましたが、最近は横ばいというような傾向が見て取れるというものでございます。それから英国イギリスでございますけれども、需要につきましては少し上がったり下がったりばらつきございますけれども、再エネの供給は特に近年急速に拡大をしていると。原子力についてはほぼ横ばいの供給でございます。そういった中で火力は近年大きく低下をしているというものでございます。従いまして CO2 の排出量は低下傾向が継続して続いているということが分かるというものでございます。11ページは EU 全体でございますけれども、ここにつきましては近年は発電の需要量実施は横ばいでございますが、再エネの供給は拡大傾向が続いております。原子力は横ばい、 火力は近年、大きく減少しているというものでございまして、CO2 の排出量は減少傾向が続いているというのが EU の特徴でございます。12ページは中国でございます。中国は全般に非常に拡大をしております。発電の需要は急拡大してございますし、再エネについても近年、これも急拡大をしていると。原子力については増加中、その傾向が続いています。火力についても増加中でございますけれども、近年はやや抑制傾向というものでございます。したがって CO2 の排出量は急増が続いているというものでございます。13ページは日本でございまして、これはもう釈迦に説法になってまいりますけれども、再エネは拡大中、原子力は 30% から 2% へ低下をしている状態、火力については原発停止に伴う焚き増しで拡大、従いまして電力部門の CO2 排出量は増加をしている状態でございます。15ページ、16ページのを簡単に最後に触れさせていただきます。これは主要国のCO2 の排出係数を示してございます。15ページは欧州でございますが、これは前回もお示ししましたが、やはりスウェーデン、フランスといった安定再生可能エネルギー、あるいは原子力のウエイトが高いところは、単位発電量あたりの CO2 排出が低く、ドイツは再エネは非常に増えておりますけれども、石炭の割合が多いので、CO2 の排出量も単位当たりは多い傾向があるというものでございます。16ページはアメリカの州でございますけれども、これも州ごとに幅がございますが、テキサスといった化石燃料の使用が多いところ、それからイリノイといった石炭の使用が多いところは、単位発電量あたりの CO2 排出は多く、ワシントン州やニューハンプシャー州といった原子力安定再燃の多いところは、その CO2 排出が低いという傾向でございます。以上でございます。それでは早速でございますけれども、有識者のご意見をいただきたいと思います。最初にエクセロン社のクリス・グールド副社長からプレゼンテーションをお願いいたします。20分程度でお願いしたいと思います。よろしくお願いします。
Yes, thank you, and good morning to the Ministry. I'd like to first thank you for inviting myself and my colleague Mr. Ralph Hunter, to be here today. It's an honor and a privilege to be invited to help share perspective on how Exelon views the energy future and the role that it can play in society towards our objectives, and also the role of nuclear in that context. So I'd like to begin with an overview of Exelon, give you some key facts about our company. We're a Fortune 100 company, number 89 on the list, with revenues of $31 billion. We are by far the cleanest power company in America, mostly because of our nuclear fleet, but also investments in renewable and natural gas fired plants as well. We have approximately 12 million customers across the U.S., including in the major U.S. cities of Chicago, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and Baltimore, but also nationally in deregulated power markets across the U.S. We are very proud to be named to the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, which is the global standard for sustainability, for the 12th year running. We are one of only 10 U.S. utilities to be named on the North American Index. An overview of Exelon, our business model. We are one of the most diversified energy companies in the United States in terms of both business model and geographic footprint. We participate in every stage of the energy business, from competitive power generation to regulated transmission and distribution to customer-facing retail products and services. Exelon Generation is one of the largest and cleanest fleets in the United States, operating in deregulated power markets. Constellation is the largest competitive retail energy provider in the United States, also operating in deregulated power markets and in 48 states for the provision of natural gas, retail natural gas as well. Our regulated utilities have one of the largest smart grid investments in the United States. That's the deployment of smart metering, the grid of the future, and the customer enablement of customer-facing products that help our customers enable their own energy future. So with that introduction, I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Ralph Hunter.
Thank you. I also want to offer my gratitude of being here and being able to speak at this esteemed, with this esteemed group. Thank you very much for having us. What I'd like to talk about specifically is Exelon's nuclear fleet. So starting with our generation mix, we have about 35.5 gigawatts of electricity generation under the Exelon generation portfolio. Over 22 gigawatts of that is nuclear. So we're a heavily nuclear powered generation company. Our fleet, we have from our nuclear fleet, we have 15 sites in the U.S., 23 operating reactors right now in our fleet. We have across that group of nuclear reactors, we have a capacity factor of almost 95%, and I'll talk more about how we do that as we go forward. I want to talk a little bit about the performance, some performance data on our nuclear fleet, because I want to discuss later how we got there, but I want to see where we stand both internationally and in the United States. In the United States, one of the most important measures of success for an operating plant is net capacity factor. The first graph here in the upper left is Exelon's capacity factor for the past 15 years, and then the U.S. average capacity factor. That delta has pretty much been the same for those 15 years. And we're the only U.S. company to be able to maintain that level for that long of a period. The graph next to it to the right, I think is actually more important, because this demonstrates not only the ability to maintain a high capacity factor, but shows the deviation of that capacity factor over time. And of all of our competitors in the United States, we have the smallest deviation in that number. Down on the left is our total production cost for generating that electricity. And again, we're one of the lowest in the United States, and we have low variability around those costs over time. Another way we measure our success is in the duration of our refueling outages for the nuclear power fleet. And the reason why that's important is because the less time you're offline, the more time you're generating power and producing electricity and making money. We strive to keep that duration as short as possible. And you'll see that we have the shortest duration in the United States, and again, the smallest deviation around that over time. I also wanted to demonstrate where we stand globally. And the best way to demonstrate that, again, is with capacity factor. This is where Exelon is against the U.S. and then against the world. And from 2003 up through 13 is the data we have on this graph. And you can see there's a large delta both in the U.S. and to the global capacity factor. The next slide, I want to talk a little bit about the history of Exelon from a nuclear perspective. We have a very large nuclear fleet because of a lot of changes in the organizational structure of Exelon over time. The company that, sort of the father company of Exelon, is Commonwealth Edison, which was a utility in the Chicago area. And then over time, there was mergers and acquisitions that grew the nuclear fleet because of the utilities and the power generation they owned. So we now have this large nuclear fleet. It's mostly paid off, and so we have a lot of nuclear assets that are low power generation and can be very profitable in a level playing field energy market. This bottom of this page, this graph, is another way to demonstrate the impact of Exelon, and what I'll talk about on the next slide is what we call the Exelon nuclear management model. This slide shows how, as these companies merged together, or we acquired or merged with companies, we were able to improve their performance up to the 93+% range in capacity factor. And in every case, when we acquired a company, we were able to do that. We implemented our management model, and were able to drive their performance up to our own. There's one, the green line on here is kind of interesting. I'll talk a little bit about that. We were going to merge with a utility on the East Coast called PSE&G in 2004. They had low-performing nuclear power plants, and so at the beginning of the merger process, we decided to place some of our people in their organization and implement the Exelon nuclear management model there. So during the process of negotiating for that merger, which took 2 years, their performance, we were able to raise their performance up to ours. Unfortunately, the merger fell apart, and we ended up not completing that merger. So we withdrew all of our people and our model, and you can see that their performance immediately decreased. So to talk a little bit about the Exelon nuclear management model and what it is. We are driven by one common theme at Exelon, and that is safety. We have what we call a nuclear safety culture, and it's embedded in everything we do and in our model of operations. And we don't believe that making sure you have a strong nuclear safety culture costs you more money. In fact, we believe in the opposite, and we've been able to prove that. We implement and are governed by our safety culture, and by doing that, we drive efficiency and thereby lower cost, and we benefit, obviously, financially from that. But the reason is because we want to make sure that we are the safest operator of nuclear power plants in the world. And we've been able to demonstrate that through our performance. The Exelon nuclear management model drives the culture changes throughout an organization that allow you to get to that strong nuclear safety culture that is so important for us. We believe, of course, that a nuclear accident anywhere is a nuclear accident everywhere. So we believe that this is important not only for ourselves but for the world. And some years ago, our CEO, Mr. Chris Crane, decided that there may be an opportunity to help other companies in the world realize the benefits we've been able to realize through our nuclear safety culture by implementing the Exelon nuclear management model. This page is, we call this a placemat. It's a very busy slide. I apologize for that. But it's designed to demonstrate everything we do in our planning functions and our core functions and our accountability lines to get the performance that we desire. And you'll see that there's a key under the Our People thing there. It's an old-fashioned key. That's the key to this lock on the left. So we believe it's all about people, and having the right people in the right positions at your company and driving that right nuclear safety culture allows you to achieve the results that we have achieved. I want to touch briefly on what we're trying to do internationally. First of all, we have had a long-standing relationship, our company, with Japan and Japanese companies, both with Hitachi-san, Toshiba, Tokyo Electric Power Company, other companies we've had long-term relationships with, and are very proud and very thankful for those relationships. And when we were looking at potential ways to expand our business internationally, it was clear that the right partner should be and definitely would be Japan and Japanese companies. So working over the last probably 5 years, we have been able to form a joint venture with Japan Atomic Power Company called JEXEL Nuclear Company. And the purpose of that company is to transfer the Exelon nuclear management model to other international opportunities for nuclear new build with Japanese OEM technology. And right now that is, as you well know, Hitachi's the leader in that for Japan. And the largest market for that has been, in recent years, is the UK. As you saw in some of the earlier slides that the Deputy General presented, the UK is very serious about their carbon decrease and their build out of nuclear power plants. So our first opportunity was to partner with Hitachi and try to help the UK and the project that Hitachi has there be successful. And so far we're very proud to say that's going very well. Our relationship is very strong, and we hope to make that much larger and as that project goes forward in the future. That ends my prepared remarks. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Gould to talk about energy market reform.
Thank you. Thank you, Ralph. So before I begin on energy market reform, I'd like to highlight some key differences between the U.S. and the Japanese energy markets for context. First, the U.S. is a relatively fragmented market relative to Japan. Roughly 2,000 utilities in the U.S. Versus 10 here in Japan. Second, and perhaps related to that state, is that the U.S. government has a patchwork of decentralized policies at both the state and federal levels. These policies are not always aligned with each other at the state and federal level, nor are they necessarily aligned with the objective of market competitiveness. There are other societal objectives that are also important that may require trade-off with market competitiveness. Perhaps Japan has a different view on that and is largely focused on that, particularly in the context of nuclear. And finally, the U.S. tends to be a market-based led change. And I think the best example of that might be the advent of shale gas in the United States was economically driven and contributed massively to carbon reduction, but it was essentially a technology breakthrough that transformed that as opposed to a government-led initiative. And again, perhaps with the leadership of this ministry, Japan has perhaps a different view around the role of government to lead in conjunction with the market. So I hope that provides you with some context for what I will talk about in terms of the market structures and in particular achieving market competitiveness for nuclear power. So I think when we begin the conversation about this, we need to step back and start with the objectives that we're trying to achieve as a society in the U.S. and what are the roles that electricity can play in that regard. So societal objectives such as combating climate change, reducing greenhouse gases, improving resiliency to physical and cyber attack, and increasing reliability in the face of increasingly intense weather events. I think we all would agree that electricity plays a significant role in meeting those objectives. And what this means is that electricity, in our view, is no longer a commodity, a simple commodity to be consumed. Rather, in the context of these objectives, there are other attributes that make the type of electricity very important, and therefore market competitiveness around it. So what was once an undifferentiated commodity clearly now has distinct differences. Within that context, how does nuclear power have a unique set of attributes that can meet those objectives? Well, one is carbon-free, and second is the resiliency and reliability that it provides in terms of firm fuel relative to natural gas, for instance. But currently, nuclear, even existing, is challenged in terms of its market competitiveness. Despite these attributes, competitive markets for power do not currently reflect all the attributes that I mentioned for nuclear power. Competitive markets are entirely capable of pricing these attributes in. There's historical precedent for that, but the historical least cost commodity design that was electricity has not evolved to the same attribute-based level that we see that it needs to in the future, consistent with providing our societal objectives. So the approaches to do this in the context of competitive markets for nuclear power. You could have a price on carbon, recognizes the carbon-free attributes of nuclear and renewables, or you could have a proper, what we call price formation, a fuel-neutral approach to assigning the value of these attributes, carbon and other attributes, as well as resiliency and reliability. At Exelon, we are focused on the proper price formation as the most effective way to maintain nuclear power at cost-competitive markets, and I will explain why we choose that path. Next slide, please. So carbon pricing, as the first example, is an elegant way to drive multiple types of policy objectives in a technology-neutral way, and you see examples of this on the tables are intended to show a before and after carbon cost basis for various types of technology, both on the supply side and on the demand side. So for instance, the first I mentioned, shale gas, the first on the left, the redispatch. That is the redispatch cheap natural gas in the United States, lowering the cost of production for gas-fired electricity, but still more expensive than some cheap coal. However, with the introduction of a price on carbon, the producer needs to account for that cost explicitly as opposed to an externality. Therefore, coal would become more expensive. The same would be the case through renewables, demand-side management, and in the case of nuclear at the bottom, a price on carbon, you can see now on the nuclear retention, meaning how do we keep existing nuclear in the stack, in the generation mix. On the left, you have the revenue and cost profile before, and you can see that the revenue column is lower than the cost column before carbon, meaning the market competitiveness for nuclear is challenged in competitive markets. However, with a price on carbon, you can see the lighter beige colored makes up a difference on the revenue column such that nuclear can be competitive. So this seems like a good approach. However, it is one that is not yet politically acceptable in the United States, and it is not comprehensive to all of the objectives that we were referring to as a society. So the U.S. Is not ready to take this path. Price formation, what is it and how can it work as a complement or potential solution? Price formation is the proper valuation of the attributes that achieve these outcomes in competitive markets. All of the attributes, including carbon, can potentially be valued. And how does this relate to nuclear? Nuclear has many of the attributes that satisfy these objectives. It is reliable, typically the capacity factor that my colleague, Mr. Hunter, referred to. These are characteristics of baseload power and important, particularly when you consider events such as in the United States, the heavy demand on, simultaneous demand on natural gas and electricity in the Northeast United States in cold weather events strains natural gas because heating is a priority for that commodity relative to electricity generation in that part of the country. And so firm fuel is not available in some instances, even from the natural gas supply. Resilience is increasingly important. Gas pipeline interruptions, but could be the result of cybersecurity, physical security concerns, or high impact, low likelihood events that are increasingly important. So why is this desirable from Exelon's standpoint? This notion of including all of these attributes in price formation. Remember, if right now price formation is largely a reflection of the historical least cost commodity approach, and proper price formation would include all of the attributes as a society, that is what is desirable. Market reform is actionable, so unlike a price on carbon, which is not politically where the United States is, there is a history and a functioning stakeholder process for us to move forward on price formation. The bottom line, a properly designed market process with defined product and outcome attributes can reflect the real value of nuclear power at a sustainable price. We believe this is what society needs to achieve these outcomes, and this is what nuclear needs to do to be competitive. How can we do this? How can we inform proper price formation if it is not where we think it needs to be today, if it is still largely a reflection of cost, but we have other societal attributes that we want to include that are technology neutral? How do we get the price formation to reflect all of those attributes? And I think this is perhaps an insight for this ministry. The role of government, create a design basis as the outcomes that the market can reflect. So what are the designs? What are the aspirations, the definitions, and the metrics for the market to incorporate? Carbon, resiliency, reliability. What is the design basis for our society that needs to be reflected as the North Star for our energy market design? What is the government's role? Because generation plant developers and operators have no economic incentives to consider systemic consequences of their investment decisions, the government can play a key leading role in providing that design basis, providing the roadmap, the design basis, and the studies that will help inform the proper price formation that will deliver the attributes that your society so wants, just as it is in the United States. So this is an efficient way to go about nuclear competitiveness, but not just nuclear, all types of generation assets inside an energy future, because it focuses on outcomes. What are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, not on picking technology or fuels. Nuclear can equitably compete in this context. I will turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Hunter.
I just wanted to give I wanted to say one last thing about nuclear power and its cost competitiveness in the United States. We've been working with our lobbying organization in the United States called the Nuclear Energy Institute. They're very carefully on a very large nationwide, all the nuclear utilities in the country format called Delivering the Nuclear Promise. And when nuclear first was developed, there was a statement in the United States that power would be too cheap to meter with nuclear power as the source. That has not been the case. The costs have risen drastically over time, especially around construction-related activities. So we've implemented this to look for efficiencies and drive them out of the nuclear power operations base across the country. And I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that as well. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございます。非常に包括的なご説明いただきましてありがとうございました。すみません、資料の方ですけれども、資料、それぞれのプレゼンテーションの資料、英語版ですけれども、後ろに和訳もついておりますので、それもぜひ参考にしていただければと思います。それから、続きましてオーステッド社の方にプレゼンテーションをお願いしたいと思いますが、ちょうど今大臣が来られますので、しばらく少しお待ちください。
経済産業大臣の世耕でございます。本日はご多忙のところですね、委員の皆様にお集まりをいただきまして本当にありがとうございます。また、エクセロン社、そしてオーステッド社の皆さんにはですね、この懇談会のためにわざわざ来日をいただいたことをですね、心から感謝を申し上げたいというふうに思います。今日も挨拶だけして出ざるを得ないんです。国会最終日ということで日程が過密になっておりまして、大変残念なんですが、毎回議事録はしっかりと読ませていただいておりますので、よろしくお願いします。これまでのこの懇談会ではですね、地政学、そして温暖化対策の専門家をお招きをして、議論を深めていただきました。今回は特色ある世界のエネルギー企業の動向に着目をしたいと考えて、今日2社にご参加をいただいております。世界の電力市場は今後、引き続き拡大をしていく見通しでありますが、その中で再エネ、原子力、火力といったですね、電源構成のシナリオはコストや技術の動向によってまだ不確実な状況が続いているわけであります。そういった中で世界の各国はパリ協定を踏まえた2050年 80% 削減の目標を視野に入れて、原子力、再エネによる電力のゼロエミッション化をはじめとしてさまざまな施策の検討を進めているわけであります。このように不確実性が高い状況の中でいち早く電力のゼロエミッション化をビジネスとして手掛けて、米国最大の原子力事業者となられたエクセロン社、あるいは石油開発会社から業態を変えて世界最大の洋上風力事業者に転身をされたオーステッド社、この両社の経営とそして今後の戦略に関してですね、我々は強い関心を持っているわけであります。今後両社が事業を進めてきた過程ではですね、多くのリスクと向き合い、そして課題を克服されてきたというふうに思います。本日はぜひ両社の皆さんからですね、そうした経験の中で得られた教訓を我々と共有をいただくとともにですね、ゼロエミッション電源に経営資源をシフトされた理由ですとか、あるいはゼロエミッション投資を継続していくために政府の果たすべき役割などですね、いろんな点についてご示唆をいただければというふうに考えております。日本企業においてもさまざまな戦略の選択が考えられる中で、今日の議論が我が国のゼロエミッションへ向けた次の戦略のための一助になることを期待をしたいというふうに思っております。ぜひ委員の皆さんを忌憚のない今日ご意見交換をよろしくお願いします。私はこれから本会議の方へ行かなければなりませんので、また議事録で読ませていただきたいと思います。今日は本当にありがとうございました。
世耕大臣、ありがとうございました。それでは続きまして、オーステッド社のマティアス・バーゼンバイン本部長からのプレゼンテーションをお願いします。資料は資料2でございます。後ろに和訳もついておりますので、それもご参照ください。それではお願いいたします。
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us here. It's a pleasure to be invited, a great honor, and I think it shows the growing importance of renewable energy globally. We have brought basically today three key items as a presentation, reacting and picking from the questions you have asked. That's our transition as Ørsted, how we have come from an oil and natural gas company to the global market leadership in offshore wind. How can you make offshore wind happen in general, but also in Japan, and how to reduce cost of offshore wind further and get costs to a level where we are in Europe now, where we have handed in the first bids without subsidies. Dong Energy, that is our former name, Danish Oil and Natural Gas, and we have just this year changed the name to Ørsted, which reflects our complete transformation over the last 15 years, and it also reflects a change of vision to contribute to a world that runs entirely on green energy, and to make this profound strategic transformation work over time. Just a short overview. We have now, you can see that here in the numbers, really very heavy focus on wind power. This is the capital employed. 84% goes into offshore wind. We are building up a strong biomass and bioenergy department. We have converted all our thermal power, well, not all of them, but almost all of them to biomass in Denmark already. And we still have our utility business in Denmark, distribution and customer solutions. We are a state-owned company, 50.1% are still in the hands of the Danish state. We have now 5,600 employees, and we're listed at the Copenhagen stock market. We were the biggest IPO last year in Europe, we have the target of completely phase out our coal activities by 2023. That made us the greenest company in Europe compared with our peers. We have now, you can see here a comparison with Iberdrola, SSE, Enel, EDP. Obviously, you will also hear that in the next rounds they have a different portfolio and a different strategy. But in terms of being kind of a front runner in Europe and globally, we think this is a very strong message. And we're also the global market leader in offshore wind. We have now 25 years of experience in offshore wind. It started small, but now it's really large-scale power plants we are building. We have built 3 times more and operate 3 times more than all our competitors, but we also have 3 times more under construction. And all our major competitors are very big utilities. It is definitely a business which is requires high investment, and it has very much consolidated over the last 5 to 7 years. Our business model in offshore wind is we have a strategy to develop, build, and also operate the offshore wind power plants. We also own them, but we divest around 50% of these wind farms to different investors, which you can see here on the bottom right. It is investors. At the beginning, it was very much utilities we partnered up with, but over the time, we have mainly divested to pension funds, insurance companies, and also like other strategic or institutional investors, Lego being one example. We have a couple of Japanese investors like Marubeni, Sumitomo, and it is. There was one question I read about the interest of investment and whether the tickets are too big or need to be small. I can only say that for our divestment process, the list of interested investors for huge tickets, which are in the range of 1 billion euros or 150 billion to 200 billion yen sometimes, the interest is very high. And also in the investment community, we see a strong trend to move from a more black portfolio to a very, very green portfolio. And so we have a very tough task there to shortlist and select our partners, which we operate our wind farms together with for 25, 30 years afterwards. We have, over the last 5 to 7 years, also gone through a very strong internationalization. Offshore wind was originally, as you know, a very northwestern European business industry. We have 2 years ago made the step into the US, where we operate, well, not operate, we have an office there in Boston, and we develop offshore wind in 3 states, in Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Virginia. And we have come here to Asia, and started in Taiwan. I will say a few words about that later, where we have 5 projects under development. For now, we have 3.8 gigawatt constructed, 22 offshore wind farms in operation, another 7 under construction, and we are in our company like 2,000 employees who work on offshore wind only. So how did we transform from a rather oil and gas company into a very much focused renewable energy company? The first big starting point was that we had a merger of different smaller utilities in Denmark in 2006, where 6 companies merged and formed Dong Energy. There was different businesses brought together, and we had then a few years later, of course, very strong already, where our legacy business, oil and gas and conventional power production, was very much eroding and brought us under high pressure. At the same time, we had invested into very different new growth opportunities: onshore wind, offshore wind, hydro, some distribution grid, also vehicles, storage, many different things, and it was very much time to focus the strategy, and it was very important to find the right technology going forward. So if I summarize, there was like 10 major levers which pulled us to transform into the company we are today. We very much started to divest all non-core assets right away. We then, but that took, of course, a bit of time. It has only been completed, for example, on onshore wind roughly 2 years ago. We invested heavily in offshore wind and have now a secured pipeline of 9 gigawatt by 2022. And we have farmed down the business model I explained before. We divested 12 wind farms so far. And we very much focus on also reducing the cost of offshore wind, because offshore wind until just a few years ago was perceived very expensive. And I think this perception for Europe is not valid anymore. That has been proven already, and it will be a matter of a few years that we can show that also in the US or in Asia. We converted 5 out of 7 heat and power plants to biomass, and want to be completely coal-free by 2023. We worked on our gas portfolio, turned around some of the long-term loss-making contracts. Then the retail business was changed significantly, more focusing on solutions, also shaping this and focusing on certain markets only. Some financial things which I will highlight in a second. And then the biggest one this year, we divested our oil and gas division, and that also led to the point that we had to somehow change our company name this year and show our identity reflecting this new green platform we are. It's fair to say that this change, and that's why I put in the financial action plan slide here, it doesn't come like it is not easy. There was also a phase where we really had to struggle and fought against fast change and had to really push this strategic transformation through. We had to focus the portfolio from 12 to 4 business areas. The divestments helped. Strong cost reduction, not only on the technology side, but in general in the company. And then at that stage, also equity injection to survive a difficult period, which has been reduced by now again. But it was very much necessary in the period 2013 to 2014. I said it already, if you just focus on the right side, you can see how the transformation goes in terms of conversion of biomass in general. we were walking away already. We were trying certain technologies. We're also very active in waste to energy, which is just picking up. But we have now already a clear picture how we will look like in 2023, and then the biomass part will be 82% of our thermal power fleet. I will skip the next two slides and go right away into offshore wind and how it can work in Japan. First of all, offshore wind is in certain ways very different from other renewable energy because it is not the same capacity factors as nuclear, but it is, if you compare it with any nuclear, renewable energy source, of course, the one which provides the most stable production. And we see capacity factors of 50+% in Europe. We also are a business which is characterized by a very long-term planning and development process, especially if it comes to environmental impact. You know that here. We need to get the necessary permits in place. We are at sea. There's a lot of stakeholders who are not familiar with offshore wind, so it's an educational process. So normally it takes time until the necessary building permits are in place, until the grid capacity is allocated, and until a financial investment decision can be taken. You can see that illustrated here. The average for that is still 7, 8, 9 years until we can start building it, and then it takes 1 to 2 years depending on the availability of vessels or depending on the size of the wind farm. And then the operational phase is 20, 25 years, now even 30 years in certain markets in Europe. Offshore wind development is a long-term process which requires clear targets, strong support, a long-term stable regulatory framework, and a clear regulation in place, especially now if I look at Japan for the open sea, so we know how that can work. If I talk about feed-in tariff, it is clear that offshore wind will be a subsidized technology for a certain amount of years. The question is for how long in Japan. I think that in Germany we have seen a stable feed-in tariff over a period of roughly 10 years. It will then be substituted by projects from 2020 on, which are built on auctions results only. And the auctions we have seen now have brought very strong cost reductions, which I will show in a second. I don't think that you necessarily need that long period because there is experience in Europe and there is a steep cost reduction curve. But I think that we nevertheless will rely on a stable framework for a while in order to build up a strong industry here, because there is so many strong industry players, and that is also something which will very heavily contribute to competitiveness and cost reduction over time. The other and very important thing is, and I just give you the Taiwan case here, showing where offshore wind should be built, like kind of a zonal or spatial planning, which considers certain influencing factors which could later on be showstoppers. For example, shipping lanes, fishery, any kind of natural habitats. So having a clear map on where the zones for offshore wind will be can be a real enabler for speeding up the industry growth. Because also Taiwan and also here in Japan we have a feed-in tariff, and that per se and standalone is not the key enabler to attract investment, foreign and local investors. It is the clear regulation, and in that case also a clear top-down picture how and where offshore wind can be built. And that has actually led to the fact that Taiwan went on the fast track in terms of attracting many different investors, but also in terms of building up a strong local supply chain now. We are developing 5 projects. We have entered into a joint venture with a local Taiwanese developer for the first offshore wind project in Taiwan, and 2 turbines are already up and running now. And then we develop 4 sites on our own, which are large-scale projects, 4 times 600 megawatt. I will say a few words on cost reduction to conclude. We have now, you read a lot about what happened in Germany or in the Netherlands or in the UK. We had bids which were really zero subsidy bid, so which purely rely on the market price. That is possible in certain areas where you already have certain synergies, where you have strong wind, and where you have certain data and assumptions you can make which allow you to have a really very certain decision-making basis. But in general, it is a clear cost regression path which we have shown now. And if you just look at the UK example here, from 2014 to 2017, costs have been reduced by 58%. If I say cost, then I mean levelized cost of electricity, which takes into account CAPEX, OPEX, and full load hours, so production, no fossil fuel cost, of course, etc. Then in Denmark, the same, 50%, and similar in Germany and other markets. If we go quickly into the UK example, then what are the main factors for reducing the cost? The main factor and the key point is scale. The projects are getting bigger, and the technology is, the turbines are getting bigger, the technology is maturing, the industry is maturing, we have it in place, harbors, manufacturers, shipping, companies in general, yards, all kind of suppliers who were willing to take like heavy investment a couple of years ago are now entering a phase where this is becoming a very, very mature business. And that is then related to also a clear risk reduction, which also on the financing side leads to lower cost. As you know, interest and is one of the key cost drivers as well. We have now seen a very clear learning curve among the banks or investors as well, who are actually very interested to go in very early, take construction risk, and not wait until a company like us wraps up all the EPC risk, which we will do in an early stage. But now it is really about coming in early and being part of this and also learning. And then, of course, synergies, a lot of synergies, because we have many projects there already, so forming clusters is a very important point as well. So I said here on the next slide, scale. You can here just see as an example how much the wind turbines have increased. That's, of course, only possible offshore. Onshore, it would probably be at the edge to have these 13 to 15 megawatt turbines, which are now in the planning by the international turbine manufacturers. But it's actually valid for all kind of technology, not only for the turbine which comes on top, but also for the substructures and for the cable infrastructure, for the substations onshore and offshore. Then innovative solutions, just a few examples. This is a foundation solution. I will not go into the details due to lack of time. In general, industrialization, procurement processes have been standardized, serial production has been introduced, and all the opportunities which come through digitalization, data, having more data, data management, using new technology also in that field, have really accelerated the path of this industry. I will just quickly showing you here on the next slide here. You can see the different clusters. I mentioned to you it's important to realize synergies especially on the O&M side, you can then harvest a lot of savings with higher accessibility, minimizing non-productive time, and having leaner setups in place. I can see something similar for Japan over time. You have strong wind in Hokkaido, you have the Akita area, the east coast, closer to the load centers like Tokyo, and then what's happening down in Kyushu. I can already see certain clusters forming, and these clusters, I think, are very important in order to reduce cost faster. Another and last point here, it has always been very beneficial to look at the full supply, full value chain. If you just look at this picture here, the wind farm consists of turbines, substations, sometimes two, and an onshore substation connection point. So I think in order to build on time and have full control of the cost, it is very important to keep the whole picture in mind, and the biggest cost reductions have been achieved if you give this scope to one company who just has to plug in basically the wind farm into the onshore connection point, where then the grid operator takes over. All in all, Japan will benefit from the European industry's maturation, but we don't see a full cost reduction path right now. It will come over the years depending on growth. It's very much depending on volume to make sure that there's some competition. So if I just look at the levelized cost of electricity we have here in Europe now, then in Asia it's probably still a bit higher. And then by building up a strong local supply chain, by adapting some of the technology to local conditions, and by building up a regional strong workforce talent and experience, you will see the same cost trajectory as we have demonstrated now in Europe, if there is certain volume which can contribute to that. So a certain amount of at least 2 projects or a gigawatt per year is needed to bring costs down over time. Thank you very much.
バウゼンバイさん、本当にありがとうございました。日本語と英語が併記された分かりやすい資料で本当に大変助かりました。ありがとうございます。それでは2つのプレゼンテーションをいただきましたので、ここからは自由な意見交換にさせていただきます。今日のプレゼンターに対するご質問等あれば委員の皆様からよろしくお願いします。いつものようにご意見のある方はネームプレートを立てて、そこで指名をさせていただきたいと思います。それでは最初に船橋委員お願いいたします。
ありがとうございました。とても勉強になりました。一つグールドさんあるいはハンターさんに、質問なんですけれども、福島のですね原発事故、これはアメリカのその原子力業界も電力業界もさまざまな形で報告書も出していらっしゃいますし、エクセロンとしても特に安全文化の観点から分析されたと思うんですけれども、原子力管理モデルエクセロンのですね、そういう観点からどこに一番の問題があったというふうに時に分析されたのか、それから現在6年経ちますけれども、現在の日本の原子力安全文化、これはその事業者、それから規制当局、社会、そういう観点からそれぞれですね、どう評価していらっしゃるのか、さらに改善が必要というふうに考えていらっしゃるところがあるとすれば、それは何なのかということを教えていただければと思います。
Thank you, Funabashi-san. First, after talk about Fukushima accident and what happened after that, it had a very big impact on the U.S. nuclear industry, and we have spent just Exelon alone large sums of money to make sure that we addressed all of the issues that came out of the study of the causes of that accident. There's some technical things, I won't go into it, but there was a lot of changes that we made to our own fleet, some of our BWRs, to ensure that we met the root cause analysis associated with Fukushima's accident. There also were some, you asked about the impact of the nuclear safety culture. It had a drastic impact to our preparation for, we call them beyond design basis threats, and that applies to potential accidents associated with unusual or unforeseen weather events. Obviously, the earthquake and the tsunami were massive impact to not only the plant but the surrounding prefecture. So we put in place something we called the across the country for nuclear power utilities called the Flex Initiative, and what that's designed to do is in two large locations in the United States, one's in the east and one's in the Midwest west area, we've put in place these large warehouses full of emergency equipment to handle a massive natural disaster at any one of the nuclear power plants across the country, and for that equipment to be able to get to any of those plants within 24 hours. And all of the utilities put money into that to make sure that it would be used by all the utilities. And there's things there that's not complicated, but large fire trucks, large pumps, large ways to put water into a melting core, for example, all located there and transportable to any of the nuclear utilities around those locations within that 24-hour period. So that's been a massive success for the U.S. nuclear industry, and direct impact from Fukushima. Second, you asked, well, I guess that was the piece that addressed the nuclear safety culture in the U.S. So now in our safety culture and in the Exelon nuclear management model, we have embedded all of those lessons learned and the actions that were taken, not only by U.S. utilities and Exelon specifically, but also by Japanese utilities and what they're having to do and what the NRA is asking utilities to do to be able to restart plants here. So we're taking all those lessons and incorporating them into our process.